Hi, Richard. Thanks so much for taking out the time to join me for this interview today. It's really great to have you here for this interview.
Great to be here, Dane. Thank you so much.
All right. So you're obviously, an industry expert. You're kind of, you've been around in the industry for a long time. So one of the places I'd like to start is just understanding how did you get started in cybersecurity? What's your background like from the early days until today, and where are you at today?
Well, look, I think most people who started in security back in the 90s came from different walks of life. So not unusual that, I was way outside the security world. I was a automotive structures engineer. But I had my own firm and we were starting to expand internationally. I had a team in Australia and then I deployed myself to work at BMW in Munich for a couple of weeks. And it was right about the time I discovered the internet and was playing around with it and stuff. And this email thing was amazing, man. You'd communicate around the world, you'd send files. And that's how I kept tabs. My guy in Australia, that's how I could stay in communication while I was in Germany. And that's when I realized, the entire automotive industry was going to need this. Our design partners, Lear Seating and companies like that, were sending us files on floppy disks to ship overseas to their counterparts in Europe because they didn't have internet, and I did. So yeah, it was just obvious that the internet was going to be a big thing, and sure enough, I started at an ISP, and a year later, I actually joined a competitor who was specialized in security. That was called Netrex. And that's, I never looked back. I was totally into the security aspects of networking. And I got to meet the founders of Checkpoint, who would fly over because we were a reseller as well as a reseller of ISS out of Atlanta, Georgia. And so I got to meet a bunch of the pioneers in the industry. And that's how I got into it. And one of our clients we worked with was PwC. They came back and hired me away. So I was at PwC doing their firewalls and e-commerce stuff when Gartner called, and Gartner asked me to join as their firewall expert. And I'd be the last to say I was an expert when they hired me, but man, when you spend 6, 8 hours a day talking to people about their firewall problems, it doesn't take long for you to have heard all the questions and learn the answers and become an expert. So that's how I really got into it at Gartner.
Okay, so you started at Gartner and kind of took on a role as an industry analyst focused on the network security segment. Is that right? Okay.
Pretty much. But back then, there was, if you think about it, there was firewalls, IDS, and the endpoint there was antivirus. Yeah, and then identity. So identity was a big space at the time. I tended to, get involved in all the research going on in all those spaces because it's more technical than most of the analysts. But it was so small back then, right? It was feels like there were less than 100 vendors. But there were probably more if I looked at it. And yeah, I only stayed there 4 years, and it was, if you think about it, it was during the entire dot-com recession. And as soon as things started heating up again, I was out of there because I was very impatient. And it was only later that I realized, wow, I'm the only thing I'm cut out to be as an analyst. And so Gardner wouldn't have me back. So I started my own firm, and here we are.
Okay, so you started that firm. It must be, how long have you had your firm running now? It must be, well, if I
Yeah.
get the time right, the
Two,
dot-com bubble, that's early 2000s, is that?
yeah. So 2005 was when I founded IT Harvest. So 19 years. But, every few years, things wouldn't go so well, or I'd owe a lot of money to the IRS. So I'd have to take a real job. And thus, I spent some time as CMO at Fortinet, um, chief or VP of threat research at WebRoot Software. And then last role I took like that was chief strategy officer at Blanco, which was a data erasure company. So if you think about it, you can see what I'm doing. I've done endpoint, network, and data. Never worked at an identity company though, and I will never work at a GRC company. Sorry.
Yeah. So you've had the in on the inside view as well as the kind of observer view
Right,
um,
right.
across different segments. So, and that brings you to where kind of your focus is today, which is, I mean, I know I've seen and I've bought the security yearbook. I keep up with the security industry Substack. Um, Obviously, there it is. There's the 2023 version, and I think you have a 2024 one coming out soon, right?
Yeah, I expect several pallets of books in my driveway in the next week and a half.
There you go. And last week was RSAC, and you had a booth there for the first time, right?
Yep,
So,
yep.
and and it
Oh,
was some people said it was their favorite booth because it you didn't go flash bang, right? It was just you, a table,
that's
signing
right.
books, right?
Yep. I had visions of because it's just a table. I wanted to hang a sign that says something controversial, and you know, convince me otherwise, like the meme. Just sit there. But I had stacks of books to sign, and that really drew a lot of people, over 400 to the booth. That was quite cool.
Now I have a new meme idea, so change my mind.
Yep.
Uh,
IDS is dead. Changed my mind.
yeah, that's going to be the new meme going around. Watch. Okay, so then, and then just to recap, the Substack is called Security Industry, right? So you publish that
Correct.
week
Yep.
or
And
random, yeah. So, and that's
try and do it 3 times a week. But you never know. And the URL is steenan.substack.com. Easy to find.
okay, cnn.substack.com. Yeah, and that's where I think I became pretty intrigued. A couple, maybe months ago, there was a post around 10,000 products. And I saw the headline and I was like, boom, I have to look into this because this is a question I've always, as a product marketer, and the audience here is mainly for product marketing and cybersecurity, and just that dynamic of the sheer quantity of products. And the attempt just to try to account for all of them is something you're doing as well through, and I don't remember the term, but you have a database of all these products, right? And you're keeping track of them
Right.
all, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting how we got to products because when I launched IT Harvest, you could tell by the name, it was intending to harvest a lot of data. And all I was attempting to do is recreate something called Gartner Data Quest. I wanted just all the data at my fingertips and constantly updated so I'd know what was going on in my own space. So I worked on that for 17 years and then launched. We had a lot of that data is reproduced in the book every year. But obviously that it changes so much, right? It's like 10% of companies are bought, 10% of the companies get funded, and close to 5% go out of business every year. So it's constantly changing. So you got to have an application to keep track of that. So I focused on vendors, and there's today we've got 3,837 vendors that we track, and we're constantly adding new ones because I'm not saying that there are new vendors being created every day, but we're finding new ones by looking at conferences around the world, for instance, or people just reach out to me and say, "What about this one?" And I add them. But and if you think about it, we launched in uh, 2 years ago with the target audience of venture capitalists and other industry analysts. Because after having this much data at my fingertips, I can't imagine an industry analyst being able to do their job without this data, right? It's just, uh, it gives me superpowers. So so that's a pretty small group of people. There are only 8,200 companies that have invested in security vendors. Um, and I always had in the back of my mind, well, we'd be doing a better job if we ingested products. Well, along comes OpenAI, gives us the ability to ingest the websites from all these vendors and extract product names, descriptions, and feature sets. And by the way, line them up with the MITRE ATT&CK technique. And I discovered something amazing. The process for categorizing 3,800 vendors was for me to personally look at the vendor's website and figure out what they do. And I'm sure you've heard this complaint before, but on many vendor websites, it's impossible to tell what they actually do. And industry analysts, especially, and I think most people think in terms of pigeonholes, right? I want to know if you are a SIM vendor. Just say it. Don't tell me, that you created data mesh to solve the most critical security problems. I just said nothing when I said that phrase. And that's not product marketers making that crap up. It's, the higher level communication and marketing teams doing the website. And they do the world a disservice by not saying what they do immediately, right? It's like a typical salesperson won't tell you how much the price for your product is. And it'd be so much easier if you just said it's $120,000 a year. And then they immediately qualify themselves by they either continue talking or they hang up on you. But anyways, as we went, what held me back from adding products was I would have to categorize, 10,000 products or more. And I don't have time to do that. And I don't know if I could. So, but along the way, we recognize something amazing. You have to say what a product does when you describe it. There's no way you're going to just filter with a whole bunch of gobbledygook about machine learning. You have to say what it is, or else you're not going to get any leads from your website, and the whole website is useless. All the money you spend on SEO and everything else won't work if you don't tell prospects that you have something they can buy from you. So all the products are self-categorized, right? The keywords are in there. Now and because of that, I can search and tell you there are 209 SIM products from 160 SIM vendors. There are 50 hardware security modules from 39 vendors. Those are just scratching the surface here, but is quite amazing what you can learn from having all this data just on products.
Absolutely. It's fascinating just how much there is out there. And to your point on the direct communication and how we can improve, I think, in product marketing, there's a really good meme that was created, I think, by Winter as a message testing company. And they said, if B2B brands sold bananas, and I have the image here, it says new level of empowerment from fructose, industry leading, cutting edge fructose boomerang, and it's like, it's a
Love it.
banana, right?
I
It's
love
like,
it.
and I think that's kind of where you're going. And
Totally.
maybe that's a good segue into like just how, if product marketers are to step up our game and better serve buyers in the industry and kind of avoid this stigma of being, unclear, what kind of tips would you give to product marketers in cyber?
Yeah, on the first part of a web page where you're pulling down the list of products, short 1 or 2 lines that should say exactly what it is. If it's a SIM, say it's a SIM. It's, yeah. If it's, even if you just so want to say it's an XDR, do us a favor and say it's a SIM, right? And leave it up to the analyst to decide if it fits in the XDR space. But then when you click through, just give us all the information that you've got. Just flood us with information. Tell us the specs. Tell us the feeds and speeds. Give us everything because, I think ITR was maybe the first to be doing this, but in the, within 6 months, everybody's going to be doing this, right? They're going to use AI to read your website and store that information. And people will be asking AI, I need a SIM product that, uses, whatever log format and integrates with this ArcSight feed, right? Real specific questions. And the AIs will know that because you said on your website exactly what you do. And we stop adjusting while we reset to go 8 levels deep on every website because we want to get all the way down to the PDF documentation so we can actually extract in the data sheets. Usually you get very, very concise information. So we'll be able to do product comparisons, you know, automatically without me having to be an expert in 10,500 products.
Wow. So yeah, it's kind of there's a term out there, I think, by a company called Sixth Sense developed called the dark funnel. And it's this concept of what you're describing of buyers doing all the legwork and research prior to even engaging with a sales team and just have it
Right.
being armed, right? And so that's
Yep.
actually sounds like is going to go, just exponentially increase,
Totally.
right? Because of this.
That's, as I'm thinking through IT Harvest business model, because we're still searching right now. We've got all the product data, so we're going to sell the security architects, the ones responsible for choosing products, right? And when you think about it, now you're supposed to go to your target audience and ask them what problems they have, right? That's a classic. And if you follow CISOs on LinkedIn, the number one complaint they have is the outreach from salespeople, from security vendors, right? They hate it. They're very verbose about it. That doesn't mean that if I go to them and say, hey, I've got the solution for your problem, doesn't mean they're going to buy, but they certainly talk about it a lot. And I think it's because the major analyst firms have stopped providing the value that they were created to do, which was to guide people in technology decision making. And they've gotten too focused on the major players. So in that article on 10,000 products, I was pointing out that of the 25 Gartner Magic Quadrants that have been released in security for the last 3 years, um, there were 288 products and 140 vendors. And the top two vendors, with the most coverage in Magic Quadrants are Microsoft and Broadcom. So first of all, you have to ask yourself, would you shop for a product from Broadcom? You know, that their customers, they got them, right? They're a legacy and they can't get away from it. You don't want to, be a customer of a company like that. So no, you're not interested in where Broadcom sits in any Magic Quadrant at all. And they're missing, in each of those Magic Quadrants, there might be 10 or 12 vendors, but they're missing 150 vendors. There might be one, down the street from you that you never hear of because they're not in the Magic Quadrant. So my take is let's just make all the information available and make it really easy to filter down to a short list that doesn't have to have the Gartner stamp of approval on it.
So then what percentage, it sounds like if 200 some odd 80, I think you said, vendors are accounted for, and you're saying there's actually like 10,000 out there. I'm sorry, 3,800 or so.
Right,
So
right.
we're probably looking at a gap like the 90% kind of that are not being
90,
covered. Is that kind of fair?
90, 97%.
Are not covered in analyst reports.
Right, right.
Interesting.
Yep. They may mention them in there. They've got market scopes, which are pre-Magic Quadrants. But Gartner's this coming year, they're going to be down to 8 Magic Quadrants. So it's even smaller number that gets coverage. And it's just really hard to cover all the vendors. You've got to talk to them every quarter. It's very, very difficult.
Right. And so AI might give more of a leverage point for, work to be done to broaden how many, I guess lessen the amount of manual work that needs to be done to understand what vendors do so that we could see an increase in visibility across that 97%. So that
Yep.
97 might start coming down in terms of coverage.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And that's where it's going to fundamentally change your thinking when you're, putting data up on a website. In the past, you put it there for Google to find, right? You want to be discoverable by Google search. And that means SEO. And it's, can be difficult. Some arcane product might be really hard. Or it might help, right? I've never done SEO anything, and I'm number one on everything I do on Google search. But if you start thinking that this information will be read by an AI, so I'm not saying that it'll train an AI model. That doesn't help you very much at all. Um, but an AI will be out there reading the website and extracting and comparing to what somebody's searching for and give you the answers you need. So include everything, every single integration, every single reference customer you can. Um, just yeah, have the answers there.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting to see where we're headed. And obviously, AI is having an impact not only on that perspective of the business and but also from a product development standpoint. And maybe we can look at the broader market just in terms of, well, we had RSAC last week. Obviously, it's top of mind for both of us and everybody that attended or didn't attend because it's frankly everywhere on LinkedIn and social media as well. But um, and in fact, I recorded on my GoPro. I just walked around and kind of recorded everything because I'm just interested in what, you know, because it's so much to take in that sometimes you have to take a step back and say, wow, what did I
Yeah,
just walk through? Right. And so I can't
yeah,
imagine if a buyer is trying to navigate that. And that's just the vendors that are there. And like you said, that's I guess if we did, what'd you say, 300 or 400 were exhibiting last week?
yeah. We counted 405. So
405, and if there's a 300 3,800 or so, so there's
yeah,
what,
just over 10.
3,500 that weren't there, right?
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. Yep.
okay, but what did you see, like what were your kind of takeaways from anything that stood out to you as you were there? And I know that you had to be at your location and didn't have
Yeah.
too much of a chance to, but
For the
maybe in the
first time,
conversation.
I didn't see the show floor, and I didn't get. Usually, I spend a solid 3 days just walking it, and you kind of get a buzz because I love the information overload. And after 100 conversations, you kind of get a feel for where it's going. So I had to do it by proxy, on LinkedIn, etc. And as predicted, AI was top of mind for everybody, for the vendors, not necessarily the buyers, because I don't believe the buyers, care at all, right? They don't care what you're. First of all, Darktrace has been claiming AI for 5 years, and and they've tricked a whole bunch of people into buying their product based on magic pixie dust, right? And everybody has heard that pitch and doesn't believe it. So if you come along and say, "Hey, we have AI," it's already been tainted, right? The whatever we want to call the marketing campaign that Darktrace has executed, they've ruined it for everybody else. And second of all, there are no threats, right? It's not like ransomware that is just pervasive and costing us billions of dollars. It's not like an APT group hacking into weapon systems. It's just an idea that bad things could be accomplished, right? So there's no market. So my advice is don't say me too, right? You don't see me, even though we couldn't do anything we do with our database without AI. You don't, in nowhere on our website will you hear that we're an AI company, right? We're not. We're just using a tool. That's like saying we're, I don't know, a computer company because we use software and computers, right? Um, and of course, the biggest vendor who I was already kind of in a fight with, Palo Alto, for not being there. Just I'm really mad at them for doing that. Um, they decide, okay, we're not going to be at the conference, but instead we're going to rent out a whole hotel to talk about our AI security initiative, which we haven't done yet. It's not available yet. Sometime in July, you'll be able to buy AI from us. And, what are they doing? Did they hire a bunch of people from Anthropic and OpenAI? Are they paying people, the 5 million a year salaries? Or is it just a bunch of data scientists said, oh, we can do this with AI because you use existing large language models, which is, yes, it's exactly what they're doing. They're doing what every other product team in the world is doing right now, and you should be figuring out how to use this new tool to advance and speed up and lessen the cost of everything you do. And it's to me, it's lunacy that the biggest vendor, all big vendors in the space from day one have not been able to innovate. They don't come up with the next new thing ever. It's never been done. So for Palo Alto, who's already pushing, some weird philosophy of platform versus best of breed, which is, age old battle that they're not going to win. All of a sudden come out and say, you know what, we're just going to take over the AI security space. It's a 20 to 30 billion dollar industry, I think they claimed, which is also outrageous. Um, that it's just not going to happen. Can't happen. Sorry, they will. Yes, 2 years from now, they'll buy the leading AI security vendor, and then they'll be the leading AI security vendor themselves. But they're not going to do it through whatever they're doing now, which is mostly marketing. They've spent more on marketing already about their AI solutions than the sum total of all the revenue from the 12 AI security vendors that exist today.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I saw a lot of variations of AI, across the event, and that's top of mind. And then, were there anything else that was there anything else that you saw, or was there like a common question that you were asked from all those people that were coming up to sign for you to sign the books, or um,
It's still um, I got a lot because we're entering a phase of, fast announcements about investments and lots of M&A going on. There's still this concept that um, the industry is converging, that there are too many vendors. And I don't believe that at all. It's because you just talk to all the vendors, right? They all have a reason of being, they all have customers, they all have repeat customers, which is the first tell that they've got something valuable, right? And and it could be geographic because of regulations or just proximity, right? And MSSP is going to be in your backyard, hyper local stuff. Um, a German vendor is going to have a German language website and serve those customers. So it's always going to be that way. That I do not cover all of the Chinese vendors. I only think I've tracked about 16. There are 1,126 cybersecurity vendors in China. And that's just the way it is. They're not going to buy from Israel and the United States. They're going to have their own. So no surprise there at all. Um, and then the convergent or consolidation question, we finally did have consolidation, and there's two drivers for the consolidation of the antivirus vendors. And for years I'd argue against the concept of consolidation, that's not what's going on, right? It's Symantec and McAfee were buying companies to tuck in products that they could sell to their existing customers, right? That's a perfectly reasonable growth model. Um, so I said, it's not consolidation unless Symantec buys McAfee. That's consolidation, right? But that doesn't happen until the market's, pretty mature. Well, along came Microsoft, who started giving away antivirus endpoint protection for free. Right? That says commoditization, and they drove the price to zero. And then, what was left of Symantec acquired AVG and Avast and a couple other antivirus vendors beginning with A, and truly consolidated them into the one company, publicly traded, extremely profitable, has the highest revenue per employee of any cybersecurity company in the world, and all for products whose only value is that their customers don't know how to unsubscribe from their antivirus licenses, right? Because if you're using Windows, it's free. Just use Defender and you're, pretty much in good shape. So all the billions of dollars that Gen Security takes in is just money that people can't figure out how to not spend. It's like the AOL model back in the day. But now we had, Palo Alto buying most of the QRadar SaaS deployments from IBM, and and then another merger between two SIM vendors. Now we've got consolidation in the SIM space, and the only question, unlike the AV space, where it's driven by Microsoft from below and CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, and Cybereason from above with better solutions. What I'm trying to find out is there better is there a trend for a better SIM solution? If so, who are those winners that are innovating and and forcing the old SIM to be commoditized? And then is Microsoft giving away access to its Sentinel? I don't know that. So, but it's
So
an
another,
interesting dynamic.
yeah, in other words, it's almost like we're seeing consolidation at the segment or category
Right,
level.
right, right.
And that happens in trends or phases
Yep,
throughout. And that
yep.
this is this new, or have you seen this throughout your career?
No,
And
no, it was new with antivirus. That was the first time.
got it.
And I think and it'll be um, new with SIM as well, because I mean, it's like we're a spear, slicing through the atmosphere, and the pointy tip of the spear is all the things you got to do to counter 0 days and block and tackle actual targeted attacks. All the stuff at the back end of the spear is the hygiene, vulnerability management, configuration management, uh, hunting on your network for blips that you can track down, all the things that actually don't improve your security, but you got to do. And those could commoditize, and because eventually they get incorporated in regulations. You must do this, in standards that say you must do this. Just the way logging is part of a lot of the standards. You got to log everything, um, and you have to do vulnerability management. It's part of the standard, so that's people do it.
Yep, absolutely. I remember doing work around around the PCI standards, and what there was so many different things required there that necessitated, you know, uh, tools like logging or vulnerability scanning, things like that. But
Right,
I was
right,
thinking
yeah,
we could change gears a little just for the PMMs in the audience. If we talked about the advice around messaging and being, bringing more clarity to that piece of the puzzle, but then in this dark funnel component, I'm wondering, you said everything, like provide as much details as you can. How do we do that without overwhelming the buyer or making them feel like, man,
yeah,
I can never learn as much as there
right,
is?
right. So you're not providing all that detail to the buyer. You're providing that to the AI that's going to read it. So definitely do what you've always done, which is high level bullet points and uh, capabilities, but quickly get to, somebody might not think in terms of, what problem do I need solving? They are, they're an expert, right? If they're looking for a new solution for vulnerability management, and they've been in the space their entire careers. They don't need you to tell them anything about the problem at all. They don't need to know that, you know, all ransomware attacks occur from unpatched systems. Right? You just don't need to tell them that. So they're already searching for something that is easier to use. So it may be that they need enrichment with CVE values. So you better say that up front that you do that. They might be looking for, uh, real time alerts when a exploit's in the wild, right? So tell them that, lead with that, because that's what they're going to be searching for, and they should see that right away.
It's interesting. So it's becoming much less about the content format. Like, who cares if it's called a white paper or a data sheet? It's about the questions that you're answering.
Right.
So think about it from terms of, if you're a practitioner or a buyer and you're sitting there and you're about to prompt ChatGPT or whatever the tool is, or wherever you're asking it, how do you best make sure that there's accuracy in the information that's out there and available? So thinking through all those technical questions as well as the general question, and making sure that those answers are available. Is that kind of the new name of the
Yep.
game?
Yep. That's
Wow.
it.
Interesting.
Exactly. And so there are a bunch of sources that research companies like IT Harvest that track headcount via LinkedIn. And so somebody should be checking that every month to see if it's accurate and find out, it's probably not product marketing that does that, but somebody on the marketing team is formulating what everybody says on their page about what their company does, right? Which is great. But they should also be checking, what LinkedIn says their growth rate is, et cetera, make sure it's accurate. Because there are a ton of investors that look at that data, both on the private and public side. And quite often you'll have the problem that no name security did, right? 30 to 40% of their employees were fake accounts, because when you're filling out a trial account or a test account, rather than put in your real company name, you say no name. And so they ended up always having inaccurate numbers. It's impossible to track. And maybe that's a good thing for them, because they're always the biggest in API security. And then redacted in its short life had the exact same issue. I was just talking to somebody at Safe Security, same issue. Access security. There's so they got acquired, but for a short time, they go in and fix it every year by working with LinkedIn to take people off. But there were three access security guard companies around the world, one in India, a lot of employees. And they would just get in and say, "Oh, access security, that's us." And they would mislabel the company they worked for. So, you know, keep an eye on that, because that's critical data that gets used by a lot. And it's you can you can make it more accurate, but it's really hard to fudge, right? You would have to violate the terms of LinkedIn if you were going to make up a bunch of fake accounts, right?
Yeah, and I think on the API piece, you also posted some data around that segment in particular in one of your recent Substacks, if I remember correct, the API, either a decrease in vendors, or I can't remember exactly what happened there, but
Yeah, there've been 39 vendors all this time. Now, No Name just got acquired, but both No Name, Salt, and Bionic did not come to RSA. And we found out during RSA that No Name had been acquired by Akamai. So that explains that decision, right? They obviously knew they're going to get acquired, and Akamai says, "Well, we already have a booth. We don't need another one." Um, so we don't know how they figured out that No Name was being acquired, but they probably knew, right? Industry scuttlebutt that I wasn't aware of. So they knew it was safe to pull out, and Bionic had been acquired. So
got it. Okay, that
yeah,
makes sense. So, well, I guess kind of cutting close to time here, just wrapping it up from a I always like to try to point to, and I wonder if AI is even going to make this irrelevant, but what information sources, should PMMs plug into, like, or people that we should follow to keep up to speed, um, including your own publications, if you want to, drop those here as well, just to make sure people know how to follow you on LinkedIn, and, just thinking of where we can stay plugged into the industry.
yeah, definitely, follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn. I Everything I do, I eventually post to LinkedIn. So, and the algorithm's pretty good about making sure everybody sees it. And then, but you go direct, you can sign up for my Substack, so you'll get it in email format as well. And then, there are a bunch of other really great people covering the industry now. Ross Huliak comes to mind. Mike Privet comes to mind. Chris Hughes. So if you can follow those people on LinkedIn and their various newsletters, that gets you really good coverage.
Okay, and is there anything else that you wanted to talk about here? Or
No, I could go on forever. You know me.
I, well, I do appreciate the time, Richard. Obviously, we're both in post RSAC recovery here, but this is always good to understand and share this, with the broader cyber PMM community out there. So thanks, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Dane.
All right, take care.